Hello, everyone. This is Nannette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution, and we are here reading The Storm Before the Calm by Neale Donald Walsch. And I'm going to ask Lynda to get a chapter and take it away, Lynda.
Okay, so we are on conversation 24, which starts on page 197. We're about 75% through. Um, and so, do we want to start with reading or do we want to do a little discussion first?
I'm good either way.
I don't have any feeling of needing to discuss anything. So I think that's the question. If anyone has something they want to bring up from the discussion, then we can
Yeah,
do that.
Yeah, I don't have anything to bring up at this moment.
Sarah? No? The only thing that I have, and I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it, but I thought that the highlighted box a few pages earlier before the end of the chapter where it says we've created a society in which an auto race is more important than the human race. Um, it strikes me that we've created a whole lot of things in our society at this point that seem to be more important than the human race. That's my comment.
Yeah, I was just rereading that and I was horrified as I was when I read that the first time, that the kind of money that was being given to the uh, race car industry. And, you know, we've got starving and homeless people and other things I think are more important than a car race, but that's my opinion. Over.
Well, me being the economist here, it's the people over, the profits over people, you know. It's that paradigm that puts money, and in that case, the auto race, that I believe was donations from, like, buy ins from the armed services for advertising and stuff like that. And so that's the war aspect of the whole profits over people thing, which, we see that in the Middle East with wars that are about oil, even if they say they're about other things. Yeah, that's the whole thing right there. I feel as an economist, so that's my way in, is people have to be more important than profits. Okay, over.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, and I've long believed that our senators uh, should wear. I mean, I think the way when you look at somebody that participates in a car race, their outfits are covered in badges from the people who've given them money. Well, I think we should require the same thing. If we're going to allow lobbyists to give senators money, then those senators should have to visually show us who their allegiances are to. Because right now, the only way you can do it is digging through a bunch of paperwork.
I was just going to say it shouldn't be left up to us to dig it up.
Right, right,
Shouldn't be a thing. I mean, getting the money out of politics should be a top priority until it's not. Until it's done, you're absolutely right, Linda.
right,
We
right,
should know who's paying who for what.
right.
Really,
That would be a
ultimately,
start anyway.
yeah,
You know?
ultimately, money has to get the freak out of politics
Yeah,
because, and
yeah,
corporations have to be seen as corporations and not
right,
people, you
right.
know? And really, frankly, okay, here's where I'll get on my little radical ranty soapbox because it's always there. Um, why do we have advertising? Because it's no longer about making us aware of the differences in people's platforms or their policies. I don't know about in Scotland, Sarah, but here political advertising is a big thing, and all they do is attack each other in the ads all the time. It's just don't vote for that guy because he's a socialist. Don't vote for that one because he, smoked pot when he was 22 or something. I mean, it's like all it is attacking them. And that doesn't teach you anything useful about who to vote for. So why do we even have these ads? Get rid of the freaking ads. Let information come in the form of debate and discussion. And, you know, like when they used to actually do like policy ads in papers, like, here's the platform, here's what the candidates are saying. I mean, of course, it won't be in newspapers anymore, but, there you are. It's all the way it's all been prophetized, you
That's
know?
really interesting, Mary, because I was just about to say before you said about I was thinking about advertising in a wider sense. And in Bristol, in the UK, in England, the city of Bristol, they've actually started a campaign to wipe out billboard advertising. So they've painted over all the billboards and they're now just putting important things on the billboards, but no advertising. And they're just starting this whole movement against advertising and promotion in general.
I like it.
I like it.
I really like it.
Yeah.
I
There's
don't
so
know
much
that.
we can do, isn't there?
Huh? Yeah,
So much we can do, yeah.
I like it.
If you think back on television advertising, so when it became clear that cigarettes were not good for us, eventually we stopped allowing advertising for cigarettes on television.
Yeah.
On major network television. I can't speak to what they do on channel, cables and that, but major network channels. And they outlawed alcohol as well. Why they haven't outlawed pharmaceuticals, I don't understand. Right? Like every other commercial is a commercial now for some kind of pill or drug or something for something. Ask your doctor about this.
Yeah.
And and then we've just had the lawsuit with whoever it was that did the opioids, and there was a huge lawsuit that this drug manufacturer lost over opioid manufacturing and advertising and baiting and doctor incentives and all of this. I don't understand why drugs are allowed to be on our airwaves.
I don't either. And I think one of the things that's amazing to me is that they have somebody talking so fast at the end about the consequences of
Right.
taking the medication, and the last one, which is could be the most important one, is it could cause death. It's like, and there are so many of them, I can't, it's like for a couple of days I'll remember the name of one of them, one of the medications they're promoting, and then the next day I'll think, oh, that was what that was. I didn't know what they were promoting, because it's just coming at you like stars in Star Wars. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I can answer one question. I'm sorry, I'm Canadian, but we were about 20 years behind you. But we try hard to catch up, so it might be 19 today. My family physician would be sitting at his desk with a pen and the prescription pad under it the minute I walked in. And he was scribbling it out as fast as he could. And he'd been a military physician, so his office was on 10-minute blocks. Like, get out so I can charge the next one. And she will also leave with a prescription. I don't know if that's how it works in the US.
Well, they get a lot of incentivizing.
Yeah. The
That's the
pharmaceutical
problem.
companies pay them
Yeah.
to prescribe.
Free-
But I
Yeah.
want to say two things. One thing, where I live, we still have liquor advertising. Is that not a thing elsewhere? Because we have liquor advertising on the TV all over the place.
We do
On the
too.
major channels?
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe it's an Alaska thing that you
Well,
don't.
no, maybe they've dropped it.
But
No, for a long time, and it hard liquor, or because I know
Both.
I know I've seen hard liquor on cable.
hard liquor and, well, I don't know about, if you're talking about like CBS and NBC, I don't know about that because I guess I watch all my stuff on.
Yeah, see, I don't think that there are liquor ads on the major networks.
I'll have to go watch NBC or something for a while and see. I know there are during like the Super Bowl though.
Yeah, there's beer commercials. Yeah, there are beer commercials, but I'm talking hard liquor.
Now I have to wonder. Now I'll start paying attention to what channels I'm seeing it on. They might be.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is about the pharmaceutical advertising. The real question is, when did they allow that? Because that didn't used to be allowed. Like when I was a child, you could not, the pharmacies, they couldn't advertise because it was understood that that's something your doctor does. And every time I see those, I'm like, why the hell is that
Right.
advertising to a consumer? I'm supposed
Right.
to go tell my doctor what pills to give me? That seems really backwards.
Yep.
In addition to what you're saying about, all the side effects sound worse than the disease. But it's like, I don't know when that became a thing, but I know that there was some point, maybe it was in the 80s when they were rolling back all the regulations, right? Under Reagan,
Right.
maybe, when they
Right.
said, let's just let the pharmaceutical companies advertise to consumers. And that should not be a thing, along with all the other things. That shouldn't be a thing that I said before.
Yeah. No, it definitely shouldn't be a
It's
thing.
another example of just profits
Right.
over people. And
Right.
plus, you are allowing, so then the pharmaceutical company is spending all those millions of dollars on advertising. And where does that money come from? Well, us, the American consumer, who pay like, $2,764 for something that Shabana gets for
40.
35.
Yeah.
It's like, but then that gets us into the whole healthcare system in the US, which is a whole other big kettle of fish that I won't go into right now, even though I do think that it is related to the subject of the book.
I'll get into it. All these drugs that we take in Canada, which are a fraction of the American price, they're all manufactured in India or China. Like our electronics, everything's being sent here from a third world country where there are no laws or regulations regarding labor practices.
But the thing is, that's true here too. They just jack up the prices more.
Yeah, so I mean, I honestly can't wait for the meditation because I truly, truly believe that the alignment of hearts and this book are useful in changing everything, because these are human beings who are pharmacists. These are human beings made in the image of God who have chosen to get rich at the expense of everyone, from the worker in India or China to the consumer wherever. Like, this injustice can be turned off the way I would turn off my faucet. Like, enough already. I mean, God is here to help us.
Right.
That's what friendship with God said, is that call upon me because I'm here to serve you. And I want to end this here now. And while I'm on the rant, like Mary, I just want to say that the clothing that I'm wearing, this, which is styled in some fashion house, is made by, now it's come down to Cambodia and what, Bangladesh is still there, but it's China won't do it.
Right. Oh, I have something so important to say, Shabana. Oh, I want to make sure that we distinguish between pharmacists and pharmaceutical companies because I have known several lovely pharmacists. My best friend, my niece's husband, you know, it's, and that's part of the profits over people paradigm. So when you do the meditation, make sure that we're casting a wide net. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Shabana.
Well, Nannette, how about I do the meditation because I'm raring to go.
I'm not opposed. Is anybody else opposed?
No.
I was going to suggest that, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Does anyone want to add something like Mary did?
Yeah. Can I add something?
Yeah.
Sure. I am.
My opinion is that, of course, I was late, but anyway, I know about things. We're not short of pharmaceuticals in our body. We're full of it. We don't even have to take the drugs. It's in the water. Look, the pharmaceutical industry is the same industry. It's the same as the Undertaker in a way, but it's a passage along the way. And it's got nothing to do with life, really. It hasn't. I know this. It's got nothing to do with quality of life, but it's got everything to do with your demise. And there are natural ways which we've been blocked from understanding. And that's what I want to say. It makes me mad, really.
I totally appreciate your addition to what Mary said. And because the standard joke in my family, see, my dad was a physician. So he used to look at me and he'd say, yup, your mystical beliefs are a throwback to those of our ancestors. You see, his father was also an allopathic doctor. So when I said, Dad, I don't believe any of that, what you're talking about, I don't care. It's not true. The body can heal itself. So he said, yup, you're going back about 3 or 4 or 5 generations. That's what our ancestors believed. And I said, darn proud of it, right?
We need a good immune system. You need a good immune system. We need everything to be healthy.
Right.
But
Right.
we won't get it at the pharmacy.
No.
Well, on the other hand, and our air, water, etc., oceans, everything is becoming toxic because of the production of consumer goods. So,
Profits over people.
yeah. But I mean, I should stop talking, but I get the idea of what you're saying is that now it's even more needed, the practices that you've got, such as the sound healing, because I mean, Nannette, we spoke about in book 4, Conversations with God, book 4, about the highly evolved beings, and they're standing by, but they have to be called in. They can't just do the work. And I've got a daughter who's she does something or other, and she knows that I live in Alberta, which is the powerhouse of Canada. They convert tar into oil. So it's a very expensive process, and the economy has tanked because the price of oil is now so cheap. And if Mr. Biden makes friends with Iran, Canada's oil sands are just kaput. But my daughter says that the procedure by which they are extracting the oil is already out of date. It's too resource consumptive, that there are better, faster ways to extract that oil. But young professors like her aren't going to be given the chance to talk about it because the corporate grip is tight. You see, they want to keep making the oil in the old way, even though it's hurting the economy, because to bring in the new method that the millennials are familiar with, like the highly evolved beings, no one wants anything new. Let's just stick with what's old so we can bitch about what's wrong.
The only way we'll get empowered is by being embodied, because when we're in this body, we've got power. When we're getting sick and dying, the body is weakening. So we have to come back into the body. That's why that sound healing was started. So we're not just talking to our heads, because no solutions come up here.
Exactly. Yes.
One last tiny thing on the subject of pharmaceuticals, which is that the problem with the pharmaceutical drugs is that they are just treating symptoms. They are not treating the whole person to bring back health. You know, they're treating symptoms of illness. And then you're kind of defined by your symptoms. So that's the big problem with the way that allopathic thing works, I think.
Yes, yes. I was required to wear a bracelet saying I am diabetic, and I thought, heck with that. You know, I'm not going to be defined by my diabetes. Every time I've passed out, they've known what was wrong with me. They didn't need to read the bracelet.
Right.
Okay, I'll say the prayer. This is no meditation, guys. This is a prayer. Okay. Lord God, for the sake of convenience, we're going to pray to you in the name of Jesus, because everyone knows that that's the most powerful way to do it. So here we are. You know what we're going to ask for, but I'll verbalize it anyway. Mary has distilled it to profits over people. And Anne says that it's not a matter of the head, it's a matter of the whole body, including sound healing, that can be used and is powerfully effective in healing. Lynda knows that she and her husband Paul drove through a snowstorm at 10 miles per hour because that was the smart thing to do. Otherwise, they'd be dead. Intuitively, we all know what's what. And while we're still healthy, and Nannette is able to continue to guide us in this group, and Sarah continues to attend no matter what's going on with her computer, we are thanking you that you know that we're inviting the highly evolved beings from across the multiverse to teach us, guide us, help us, direct us, and do it for us if we can't do it for ourselves. This planet needs a cleaning, and please start with our hearts. because every one of us has the little willingness to do that. And regarding me, I've got the willingness for the willingness. So take it away, God. Amen. Oh, and thank you. And we love you. Thank you, everyone. I'm wondering where Bob is to come and summarize everything we've talked about.
I give it 5 more minutes. I have
Yeah.
to say one thing that came up for me in that meditation because it's funny. We all like to laugh, right? Um, Thank you for the reminder about asking the highly evolved beings for help. And a long time ago, someone told me that I needed to ask, like, my angels for help more because I suck at that. I forget that they're there, even though I know that they're there. So I was trying to ask them more, and they said, ask them even for the little things, like things that you think are too stupid to ask your angels for help on, just to practice. So I was buying jeans, and I had two pairs I was deciding between, and I said, okay, angels, which jeans should I buy? And the angel said, which ones make your butt look better? Anyhow, I will remember to ask my angels more how to approach the aspects of life that I find challenging. And I'm not talking about the big things, I'm talking about the little things like finishing downsizing from my move because I'm supposed to do that by the end of the year, and there's still lots of boxes in the garage I have to deal with. Over. Thank you all for letting me tell my silly story.
Thank you for telling it. I think we can all relate, Mary. I go into a parking lot and I go, St. Anthony, in the name of my mother, Barbara, please let a car pull out near the door.
My sister's prayer for that is, Hail Mary, full of grace, help us find a parking place. Well, she says help me, but I say help us because I'm with someone else usually.
Right.
Hail Mary, full of grace, help us find a parking place.
That's a good one. I like that one.
And you got to remember to thank her afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that one.
Okay.
Shall we read?
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead, Linda. Why don't you anchor us and then read?
Okay, so again, we're on conversation 24, and that's on page 197. When playing by the rules is unfair. Have I been overstating the facts here? I've been saying that when one sector or sphere of our collective life dominates the other two, as the economy is now dominating politics and culture, nothing can result but a dysfunctional society where the desires of the few are met at the expense of the needs of the many. Or where, if you please, the economy is served, but the mass of the people that the economy is intended to serve are not. So have I been overplaying the problem? Let's see. In late May 2011, the internet site Truthout published an interview of Thomas Pogue, who holds a PhD in philosophy from Harvard University and is the director of the Global Justice Program at Yale University. In the interview, Dr. Pogue provides an introduction to the world economic situation for those who may not be articulate in this area. The interview was conducted by Keen Bhatt, an activist and musician in New York. Bott served in the Dominican Republic as Peace Corps volunteer from 2008 to 2010. In their exchange, Dr. Pogue pointed out that the collective income of half of the world's population is less than 3% of the global household income. Or to use Dr. Pogue's exact words, there is a gross maldistribution of income and wealth on our planet. When I discussed this recently in a small group, one person said, "We all know that. I'm not sure I'd use the word grotesque, but we all know there's a disproportionate distribution of income in the world. That's the nature of the beast." I responded, "Is it now? Well, that's the very point we've been trying to make here. Yet you would not call this disproportion grotesque? Look, life is not fair." I agree, but that doesn't mean it can't be. At least insofar as human-caused unfairness is concerned. Acts of God and all that are one thing, but we're talking about stuff that human beings do. But okay, life's not fair, as you put it. Shall we see just on how unfair it is? According to Dr. Pogue, the bottom quarter of the human population has only 0.75% of global household income. This is about 1/32 of the average income in the world. On the other hand, the people in the top 5% have 9 times the average income. So the ratio between the averages in the top 5% and the bottom quarter is somewhere around 300 to 1. How's that for unfair? The collective income of half of the world's population is less than 3% of global household income. It's not the fault of those at the top, if that's where you're going. No, I'm not going there at all, because you're right. Responsibility for this situation must be carried out on the shoulders of all of us. And it's not a matter of fault. How can we be faulted for living out our own cultural story? It is the story that's the problem. Given the total income and wealth available in the world today, Dr. Pogue says in the Truth Out interview, we could easily overcome poverty, which would require raising the share of the bottom half from 3 to roughly 5%. Now, you would think that wouldn't be so difficult, right? Not, I mean, in a caring society. But, says Dr. Pogue, unfortunately, the trend is going in the opposite direction. At one point in the exchange, interviewer Keen Bott posed this question. We're all familiar with assigning blame to an individual for hitting someone's car, but not with assessing the morality of the speed limit or lack of a stoplight. Are you saying that the rules themselves can be moral or immoral? Dr. Pogue offered an emphatic yes. And he used 2 well-known examples from human history to illustrate his point that the rules of the game, what I call our old cultural story, are the problem. A case could be made that people are only playing the game according to the rules they've been given. Given the total income and wealth available in the world today, we could easily overcome poverty, which would require raising the share of the bottom half from 3 to roughly 5% of global household income. Slavery, for instance, is something we have all come to condemn. But there were the people in America's Deep South who owned slaves unethical? Or is the law that instituted and enforced legal property rights in persons where the lack of ethics lie? States should never have passed such laws, Dr. Pogue asserts, and should not have been in the business of returning runaway slaves to their, quote, rightful owners. The whole institution of property in human beings was an unjust social institution and should not have been maintained in existence. The italics here are mine. The second example Dr. Pogue offered was feudalism, an economic system where a few people own all the land and the others have no option but to be serfs on such a feudal estate. We now condemn feudalism, he goes on, and we condemn the whole structure of rules that sustained feudalism. Dr. Pogue urgently invites people to think similarly about the world economy. We should condemn as unjust a global economic order that leads to ever-increasing economic disparities. But you said that responsibility for this situation is carried out on the shoulders of all of us. Yet, if we're playing by the rules, how is that so? I'll let Dr. Pogue answer straight out of the Truth Out interview. Quote, governments and their hired negotiators are designing these supranational rules and pressing for their adoption and for compliance, and the US government first and foremost. These governments are elected by us, funded by us, acting on our behalf, sensitive to our will. And so we are not mere bystanders observing the injustice. So we circle back to a statement I made earlier. The first belief we're going to have to change is the belief in our own bystanderness. Says Dr. Pogue, to be sure, one citizen or a few may be powerless if all the rest are determined to benefit from the imposition of unjust, supranational rules. But this excuse cannot work for larger numbers. Just imagine 10 million citizens in union saying in unison, I'm just one powerless citizen. There is nothing I can do to change my government's policies. Exclamation point. That deadly poison and the antidote. In the Truth Out interview above, which is much longer in its original form, and we have the source here. I'll read it. It's you go to http://truthout.org, and then it's /Yale-philosopher-Thomas-Pogue, which is POGGE, -past-and-future-global-poverty, and then another / and the number 13039300954. Because it's Truth Out, I'm fairly confident that article is probably still exactly in that spot. We see the perfect deadly mixture of two of the three spheres of human collective life, economics and politics. So just what can a society that is so bound up in this paradigm do? Is there an antidote for this poison? We should condemn as unjust a global economic order that leads to ever increasing economic disparities. Okay, we're right at the end of this chapter, so I think I'll just plow through. We might go over a minute or two. Says Dr. Pogue, the key insight here is organization. Ordinary people like you and me can achieve very little on their own. We need to build support. Even if you are a thought leader and have some good ideas on how to make the world better, and even if you write 5 or 10 books, that won't have much effect unless you have people who are willing to support your ideas. Well, now, does Thomas Pogue start to sound a lot like Nicanor Perlis? Parentheses, quote, political and economic powers often need to be awakened by a demonstration of cultural power. And so we have come full circle again. Everything that we are talking about here can be changed if there are people who are willing to support new ideas. In this case, the ideas are going to be your ideas. You will be co-creating our new cultural story. Yes? Points I hope you'll remember. There is a gross maldistribution of income, a grotesque maldistribution of income and wealth on our planet. We could easily eliminate abject poverty in the world. Sadly, the trend is going in the opposite direction. We must lose the idea of ourselves as powerless citizens. Actions I hope you will take. Build support in your community for the idea of searching for new solutions to humanity's problems. Start a discussion group around this notion. If starting such a group is not easy or convenient for you, be sure at least to pepper your conversations with others. They take place with the thought advanced by Nicanor Perlis that political and economic powers often need to be awakened by a demonstration of cultural, and I'm going to add spiritual power. Again, bring all these ideas and thoughts to your places of interface with the internet. Include in not just social network sites as Twitter and Facebook, but the Conversations Movement site at www.theglobalconversation.com. End of chapter.
You read beautifully, Lynda. I like when you speed it up.
Thank you.
I think it's funny that we had the conversation we did before we read this chapter. Because then this chapter had that conversation for us too.
Exactly. It's well, it's yeah, it seems sort of perfect, really.
It's very warm here where I'm living. A couple of days ago, it was 11 degrees centigrade. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but when I lived here 40 years ago, before I went somewhere else to have my children, it was much, 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 much colder. So Canada is really feeling the climate crisis.
You know, and what's funny, Shabana, is here where I live in Southern California, it's colder than it used to be. It's like the climate change is happening all over in different ways. It's also, it's more extremes, like the summers are hotter and the winters are colder.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I'm relieved and grateful that humanities team has all these Zoom discussions where we're shown that we are trend makers. You know, like we can make the change, that it involves truth and intention. And these citations are quite powerful.
I like the part at the end where he said one thing to do was to pepper your conversation with these things because, as you all have seen, I do that. I do that in life too, not just in this group.
Yes, and I'm very, very impressed and touched by your wisdom and your depth and your passion. It's people like you who are making the difference. Of course, Anne, Darby, and Lynda, they haven't got any of that.
Silly Shabana. It's just a beautiful group to be a part of.
And I love you, Sarah and Nannette. I just excluded you to be mean.
Oh gosh.
I had a thought about something. You know, when they like the poverty stricken, and then they create a class system, and they say we'll vaccinate the blue collar. We'll vaccinate the poorest one first. We'll trial everything on them because they've got no power. So, but the thing is, if your heart is open, going back, the sound healing is about opening into our body. So we're looking in instead of looking out. So we could find the powerhouse that's in here, and having found our own powerhouse, our hearts may open to see the beauty and creativity of the people on our planet. And we won't be thinking we'll only be able to feel into it. And to feel into it, I don't think you can fill yourself with everything and let the other one out in the street, in the cold, freezing to death. I don't think so, because our hearts are warmer, our heads are not.
Right.
I think when we're cut off, we do all sorts of cruelties. And no matter how many nice things we could think, we're not effective because we got no warmth in us, because our hearts, the fire hasn't opened, you know, to the possibilities, you know, because I think, you know, well, people, you never know the beauty of who's around and the value of life and the possibility that we could be, and here we are held hostage at the moment.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Anne.
They say the farthest distance is like the 18 inches from the mind to the heart. An exercise I used to do, because I take public transportation, but I don't take it so much nowadays because, you know, anyway. But like on public transportation, you can do it other times in life, but that's a good swap for me. Look from my heart to people's heart. Like look at people with my heart to their heart instead of looking at what we tend to look at with people. And when you look like that, heart to heart, that's what you feel is the commonality of humanity, you know. And like you say, Anne, when you're perceiving that way through the heart love space, you can't just reconcile yourself to people dying on the street, you know. It's like, it's counter to who we are when we're in that space. And that's what needs to be restored to our values as a society and culture and everything. I think, you know, like you said, we need to embody the love.
Well,
I can't let this conversation end without just saying, I say this a lot. It's hard to say it in front of an economist because it flies in the face of economy, but we're creative beings, right? We're divinity in form. And ultimately, we do not need these financial structures that we've created and that we live within. And so part of what I believe is happening here is through this awakening, we're awakening to our own internal existence. And once we embody our divinity and become the creature that we really are, which is divinity inside the housing of a body, then things will flow in a different way, right? Things will show up in a different way. We will not need the structure of commerce the way we need it now. I'm not saying that it will completely disappear, but I don't know what will happen. But if every one of us became the creative being that we truly are, life will change. Things will show up. People will show up bearing whatever it is you need. When it happens and when you get into that place, you'll never go back. So, and I'll offer this one fact. So I'm 65. I'm almost going to turn 66. I've run a number of businesses in my life. Personal, entrepreneurial businesses. I have never once in my entire life made a budget. Okay? I can't make a budget because I know that when I sit down and I work on something like that, I am entering a mentality of scarcity. And I have never in my entire life done that, other than the exercise I had to do when we were in high school, right? You learned how to do it. I've done the learning part, but I have never actually made a budget or tried to live within a budget. because in my mind, that opens up this doorway to scarcity. It opens up the possibility that I won't get what I need, that I won't have what I need to function. And what we need to do is each of us individually wrap our minds around this idea that we are complete and that we are whole, and that the universe and God and divinity will provide everything we need. And, you know, I'm not suggesting people go quit their jobs and all of that, but if you just start to hold the thought, you will start to see the result, and it will make it easier to live in a less attached way to 3D. Over.
Very nice. Very nicely said.
Let the economist speak.
Yep.
Let the economist speak. I don't disagree with anything you said, and it makes me feel a lot better about the fact that I've never succeeded in making a budget despite being the economist. I've
Right.
tried several times and it doesn't resonate with me. And I like your explanation for it because that is part of why my body rebelled. But what I want to say is everything that you said is true. And it's wonderful for those of us in this group who are closer to understanding and embodying that than a lot of people in the world who are a little bit farther away from that reality. And that's why I am so insistent about changing the structures. It's not for those of us who can figure out, I mean, I am ambivalent about the whole manifestation thing, but I know that I'm taken care of. Sometimes I feel really on the edge, but something always happens. I'm not in charge of what happens or how it works out, but I have been forced to face the reality that it does. It's like someone's looking out for me. When it comes down to it, I have an amazing network of people, basically, who act as God's hands in my life. But, I think it's really important to separate between what we ourselves can do. And for me, I feel a responsibility for the situation of a lot of other people in the world who can't just get to that place you're describing, don't even know that place exists. And so for me, the structural change is not necessarily about my own situation, but it's about improving the world. And yes, improving the world through sending your words can help too. But in the meantime,
Right.
the economic system is incredibly oppressive to a lot of people, and that is not fair in my
Yes,
opinion.
and I'm not suggesting that we don't address those things.
Right.
I'm just suggesting that there's somewhere even beyond those things that no one talks about other than me.
Yeah.
I never hear anybody talking about it other than me. So, the
Yeah.
other thing I just wanted to point out as a factual thing for people watching this later is that this book, I think it came out in 2012. So
Yeah.
the economic disparity that's being discussed here
Probably.
in this chapter is way off. It's much, much worse than it is it being described in this chapter. It's exponentially worse than it was, and it's the backstory of Bernie Sanders in politics, because that is what he's been the champion fighting against now for years. So over.
Well, I wish we could keep just chatting away. But I just want to add one little quick thing here. And that's something you said, Mary, about how there's paraphrasing that there's some things you just can't change and you need to let go of them. And I can't remember how you said it, but that's what it meant to me. And it's an interesting thing because I've felt some anger towards the woman that lives next door to me in this building, because every day for months I've told this woman to wear a mask, to put her mask on. And if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for me. She's got COVID. She just, you can hear her how sick she is in that next room. And I just, instead of going, I told you so, that horse is gone. There's no point in going there. It's just to keep some positive power towards her, and in hopes that she makes it through this journey that she's on.
Well, and that you make the journey, that you make it through that journey too now, because if she's right next door, you are in high risk.
Oh, I know.
Because it is, we had a very small Thanksgiving gathering with people that are in our weekly circle anyway. And then their daughter was there, but she's a nurse and she gets tested once a week. So we felt fairly comfortable about that. But this nurse was saying that it is so contagious. It's more contagious than anything else they've seen, really, other than maybe Ebola. But Ebola isn't contagious this way, thank God. But that people just don't understand how contagious it is, and that people also just don't understand the variance in how it affects people, and that it's not linked to, oh, well, you're fat and overweight anyway, or, oh, you already had diabetes, so you might as well just get sick and die. I mean, there's this mentality that there's all these people out here that we don't need, and the thing is that this thing is taking out people indiscriminately. So, you can't just say, oh, it's just the old, or, oh, it's just the already sick, or the already underlying conditions. It's not. It's just about anybody, and it can kill just about anybody.
I agree.
I need to quote Nannette to Nannette. You said once, Nannette, that I have a feeling in my heart that it's not my time to go. I mean, after all, your bestsellers coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my personal opinion, which nobody asked for.
We love to hear.
Well, that makes one of us, two of
If
us.
you get on with it.
So what it is that your neighbor, Nannette, subconsciously had the death wish, because no one's that stupid not to put on a mask. Okay? You have the desire to be published and to see it. Mary and Anne and Sarah and Lynda and I are excited about being the ones to change the world, which is why we meditated and prayed together. So heck, we want to live, and we want what we want for everyone. So we're thanking you, living God, for keeping Nannette's neighbor wherever it is that she wants to be, because free will is the name of the game. Amen.
Thank you, Shabana. That was beautiful.
I appreciate you saying that.
No, it was very timely and very beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm going to keep remembering because there's some nervousness. There's 10 people here who have it, and there's definitely some nervousness, and I can feel myself kind of in a downer. Like I like to take a lot of naps. I want to sleep through it. But I also know that if I stay in that warmer part of my body, which is the heart, it'll be okay.
It's already okay, and I send every one of the people here and those who are listening love and prayers and higher vibrations every single day. So
Yes.
if you're doing well, you can blame it on me.
Nannette,
All righty.
if I can offer just one reflection, what came to me during this was that in those moments when you feel the nervousness, just do Ho'oponopono on the feeling you're feeling yourself. If we just assuage our own uncertainty, you know, then that will help. Helps me all the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I love you all.
I love you all so much.
I love you, Mary.
It's our Sunday go to meeting. All right. Love
Glad
you.
that went.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Love you.
Love you too.
I love you
See you
too.
next week. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you.
Yes.
God bless.